Now we're going to move on to match number 5 of 6 of the day, and it's going to be FroStee versus DawN. Going to be coming right up, and FroStee again, you know, as we mentioned at the start of the day, in case you missed it, FroStee kind of has had a rough opening to this season, was looking in the lower end of his division along with Patra and Blitzchung. And then he won some matches, and then suddenly he's in contention as well for playoffs. And DawN, as you said, as this was the feature match of the day, DawN started at the top and stayed at the top of the division for most of the season, but now he's more towards the middle. So a win here for FroStee as well, because DawN has also had a decent chunk of wins, just helps his tiebreaker out even more.
That's it. We've seen such a squishing together of Group B, as I believe I saw someone posting on Twitter, I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly who it was right now, that we could potentially, at the end of the weekend, have a 6-way tie for first in terms of at least matches won and lost, and a draw for last place as well, which, although incredibly unlikely that will happen, just demonstrates how close this all is, as, like you said, with Glory, Tom and DawN all taking a whole bunch of losses in the last couple of weeks, it now means that DawN is technically behind Staz in terms of tiebreakers going into the last week, although at 7 wins each, pretty much even, it feels like, in terms of their chances of getting through. And therefore, I think if FroStee is able to take this win and have another player up to 7, DawN staying on 7 wins, it's just going to get crazy.
It really is. Let's get into it. Game 1, FroStee on the top. Honestly, I would say his signature deck, which is the Holy Wrath Paladin, and DawN on the bottom on everyone's signature deck, the Priest. But honestly, I feel like FroStee not playing Holy Wrath Paladin for the first part of the season might have hurt him more than most people think, because I think he did quite well with it in Season 1. He brought Murloc Paladin early this season, and it went okay to bad, honestly. And then he brought Holy Wrath Paladin last week, did well. Bringing Holy Wrath Paladin on his last week. So I think that shows the faith he has in the deck, and maybe he should have brought it a little bit more.
I think very possibly. I think he had good reasoning as to why he didn't, because he brought it to Masters Tour Seoul, the last big iteration or instance I remember of him playing this deck. And that was because far and away the most popular deck was Highlander Mage, being very, very highly represented at that tournament. And it is a fantastic matchup for the OTK Paladin. But of course, after the nerf, it was much less represented, basically 0 mages throughout all of APAC. But now I agree. I think he's come to the realization that it's just fine in a lot of matchups.
The deck's
it
just
beats
good.
a lot of the decks, exactly.
Oh, sorry.
No, carry on.
Honestly, when you look across all of the regions, so effectively the world, the caliber of player that's bringing this deck and playing this deck a lot, even if you look at people streaming it, for example, like these players that are top-end world players are not going to bring and play a lot of a deck that they think is very niche.
Absolutely.
Right? It's oh, this only has 1 to 2 good matchups. And I think that's really shone through now, the amount of times we've seen Holy Wrath Paladin be submitted to GM this season, and its win rate. I think it's actually got a pretty solid win rate overall, and it's definitely a deck that if you play it well, it will reward you. It's not just you just autopilot the deck and hope it's going to get the job done. I feel like if you play well, it works.
You cannot auto this deck. I think we've learned that.
Now though, DawN gonna get this Psycho Pump on the board. Get this 2/6 back up in the form of the injured Tolve.
Yeah, I think I like this play from him. He had the alternative line of going all in with Shield, Spirit, Inner Fire. But I think given how weak that was to obviously subdue primarily, but also shrink ray, or even just time out into stalling the game for a couple of turns, didn't feel quite worth it yet.
I definitely like the kind of just do stuff approach. Nothing crazy, just play stuff.
Yeah.
Get stuff on the board and maybe draw a couple of cards.
I love stuff.
Me too. I love stuff too much. And by stuff I mean like
Things.
At home I just have stuff.
Oh,
Doesn't do anything, just has stuff everywhere.
It's always that feeling of it crosses over of, am I a hoarder? Nah, not yet. It can't be.
No, hoarders have like at least a little bit more stuff than I do. And then someone's like, oh, you should, clear out, do some cleaning. Yeah, you're like, do you want to throw it this way? No. Do you want to throw it this way? No. But what about this? No.
Well, the problem is, I'm even worse, is I'm completely apathetic about 90% of the things I own. Just can't be bothered to get rid of it either. It's like,
you're not hoarding, you're just lazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want it, but I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm not an animal.
I'm the person a lot of my family come to. oh, have you got one of these cables? Oh, have you got one of these? Have you got a spare mouse? You got a spare webcam? You got a spare this? Got a spare... And I'm like,
What are you buying?
Yeah, I'm literally like, yeah. I just open one of my drawers. What do you need?
Open up your jacket. It's got HDMI, DVI. What do you need? Game Boy to GameCube adapter here. Yeah, got you covered.
DawN now, it's such a precarious place to be in, isn't it? This matchup. Because what appears on one side of the board is quite a scary game-winning board, you know your opponent could just like Thanos snap it away out of nowhere because Paladin just has the board clear. And it's fairly consistent as well because of the rate in which Paladin draws cards. So I feel it's one of the more mentally stressful matchups to play as Priest because you're like, well, I have to do something. I mean, but if I do something, he might just press one button and it all dies. It's like...
But that's the thing, is on both sides, they have that threat, that constant ever-looming threat is on the Paladin side. If you overdevelop, like you said, Thanos snap and the board disappears. Whereas on the other side, if you leave a Priest board up at any instant, they could just do this
die.
and you die. Obviously, FroStee has the answer. Or a good enough answer.
He has an answer.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think I'd be... okay, never mind.
Never mind.
I was wondering whether a coin with Flash of Light is worth, but I suppose there's Kangor Flash.
I was wondering if there's anything you can do with Pyromancer to like completely clear the board as well as the 2-1, but I don't think there is. And it's not a big deal either way, unless there's the Nefer set. And even then, if they go Nefer set, they're not playing Born Samdi. So I would be a happy chappy.
I wouldn't... You know what? Coin Kangor. I'm down with it.
Why? What does that do?
Well, it contests the Tolvin next turn.
Fair.
There you go. That's all you need it to do. And well, it's unlikely it dies, right? So if you're going to be Flash of Light in anyway, why not have a minion that can attack with a Divine Shield? And also, it might mean that you can like Pyro, Flash, trade, you know, do stuff like that.
Sure, I think it's fine. I was just wondering how important the coin is, because as it currently stands, with no activators in hand for the Pyromancer, FroStee very possibly actually wants to look towards double or triple spell with Pyromancer, because if he finds a Christology, say, he's able to clear off Northshire Clerics and things like that, which is a pretty big deal. But of course the downside is he has nothing on board now and is facing down a big threat and can only heal for so much.
Yeah, I guess. And honestly, it's going to make me sound worse. I should just pretend I was. I wasn't even overly thinking about the Born Samdi into turn 7 implications too. But that's just even more of a point, I think, to coin it out. Because you just have something. And if you, like I said, if you're going to Flash of Light anyway next turn, which I think was extremely likely.
Yeah.
Hello? Typical FroStee playing the Zeranoia.
Of course he is.
What a joke. Coin Pyro first, then heal. Do the 1 damage, keep the Pyro on the board, heal for 8, draw a card, draw 2 cards. Because he'll kill off the Thanos. It means that's all he's got.
Draw an extra card.
Yes.
Okay. And now you have to imagine for DawN,
8, 9, 10, 11.
if he doesn't have lethal, which...
He doesn't unless he draws into Divine Spirit.
Yeah. Actually, maybe he just goes for that then.
If he draws into Divine Spirit, he has Topsy, right? So
do you ever go for Amit first anyway? Because if you go Amit double Cleric heal, you still... Oh no, wait, sorry, that's all your mana.
No. He won't have lethal, he won't have lethal. So it has to be Cleric, Cleric heal.
This is fine, this is fine. I'm very happy with this.
I don't know what he's waiting for now, he has to heal. Press the button.
Is he not going for the out of lethal? He's going for this line.
He has 2 draws at just Divine Spirit lethal?
Yeah. Well, no, wait, he wouldn't have had mana, right? Because he... Because it was 18 health and he would only have gone up to 14. Oh no, with the sidekick.
Yeah.
19, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sidekick and Topsy.
Yeah. I thought he had to go for extra. Yeah, you're right.
Because also, obviously, if you look at the health total now, he wouldn't have traded into the Kangor to heal for 2, so it was 18.
Huh. Yeah, I think I probably would have preferred to have it that way, because the difference of having 1 extra health feels not worth it to me, because you could just trade into it anyway afterwards if you miss.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the outcome is almost identical, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a bit of a misplay there for DawN.
And like, I mean, he does have the second Divine Spirit. I've not blinked and missed 2 Divine Spirits being played, have I?
Don't think so. Maybe. I mean...
Derek's lost.
I'm pretty sure it was just the 1 played earlier on there for the 1 big minion.
Yeah, I thought you had 1 left.
Yeah.
And 1 out of, what, 11? I guess it's a small chance, but it's an insta-gib.
Don't have that turn. Oh.
Yeah, it's a throwback. Wow. This just shows you how busted Crystology is.
Yep.
1 mana, draw 2 cards that draw cards. You're like, oh god.
I still remember when they announced Rise of the Mechs, and like at that time, Crystology was already the best card in any deck it was in at 2 mana.
Oh, I've got an idea.
Hit
For
me.
if I was in charge of picking cards that could come back into the game,
Right.
original Call to Arms.
You sure about that?
You don't need Baku or Gen issues anymore, right? Even Paladin's not going to be a problem, so make it 4 mana again!
Do you remember how busted that
Yes,
card
it
was in
was
Control
great.
Paladin?
It's great.
Like in every Paladin.
4
it was-
mana, draw 18 cards.
That's right as well. Oh yeah. With the loot hoarders.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Like if you got Thalnos, the loot hoarders was literally 6 cards you were drawing
and
from
you
your
played
deck.
them.
And you played them for less mana than they cost. Like it should have. If it drew them into your hand, it would have been too powerful. And it put them into play.
I see a dark future.
That's why I'm not on the design team.
Because I'm too good.
I'm just ahead of my time. Just wait. 2025. We're bringing back Call to Arms 4 mana. I was like, I knew it!
Looking like the final push here for DawN. Just to try and stick anything on the board.
There isn't actually a way for FroStee to deal with this.
He's got a lot of ways to draw into it, though.
He does. And this is, I think, just something in the matchup that you have to deal with is, well, if you presume they've always got an answer, well, then you can't play any card in your deck, so just concede, right? You have to just make these plays and be like, if they have the answer, they have the answer. But if they don't, I win. Or at least get ahead.
So I believe there's still 2 timeouts left in the deck for FroStee as well. So you could definitely try and move towards that, at the very least. Especially as, bless you, that is not technically an answer.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm allergic to not drawing timer.
Forgiven, but not forgotten.
1 mana off.
So, Equality is not a play... Like, he could still just play Equality on this turn, and then go trade into the Cleric, I suppose. And then if there's a 1 health Amit on the board,
Great.
fine, yeah, it's just bad for them.
Get wrecked.
Double Blade Master. Keck W, I say in response to that, my good friend.
Yep. I think it's always... Oh! I think it's always equality.
Wow, okay.
No one's running out of cards. Just kill them all.
So FroStee's thinking here is quite clearly, and okay, maybe I didn't give this enough credit, it's quite clearly that he's very unlikely to die on this turn because he's already seen 1 Divine Spirit. And therefore, he can just go for a more sweeping actual board clear on the following turn with Equality.
So... it would be Divine... So I'm just thinking like the perfect hand would be like, say, Divine Spirit to 18, Inner Fire. It still doesn't do it, does it? Maybe FroStee's actually just 100% correct here, and he never dies.
I think they were honestly probably both fine. I don't think there's much that goes wrong with either line of play.
But if you want to maximize value,
Yeah,
I guess this is the best, because I actually do not think he ever dies this turn.
I don't think he can
Even if
die.
DawN had access to every card left in his deck, which is actually pretty heads up there.
I suppose the upside of the other play would, of course, been there is a 1 health Amit on the board, which is pretty arguably good.
Doesn't matter though, right?
But it
You're
doesn't
clearing
really
the board anyway next turn.
Yeah. This is probably just a slightly optimized version of the other one. Okay. Probably actually quite a lot optimized version.
But it's just good if
Just
you
good.
never
Yeah,
die.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on board.
Now,
Time out the last duplicate. FroStee can just start running away with the game now. I think Zephyrus active means
take a cheeky trade first. Yeah, I like it. Boop. Draw card.
this game is just his playground now. He's playing on sandbox mode.
And now, I don't think they're actually cards even in DawN's deck that do enough damage.
Yeah.
We see the benefit of the call as well.
Good point.
Making games maybe not the most common outcome, but makes a certain amount of games a little bit more secure. Look at Frosty's armor. He's way beyond 30 health, and when there's that one Divine Spirit already used, like we said, there's ways in which Frosty just never dies because he isn't on a low health total.
That's it. DawN can try and hope that Zephyrus is not active, or has not been drawn, of course, which is, I think, his best chance of winning the game, because maybe he sticks this board. You know, it's a possibility. A slim one, however it may be. So, does Zephyrus need to be played here?
He can just time out.
Timeout probably just gets him to a win anyway, yeah.
Like, DawN can't just... I don't know, can DawN do nothing?
Like, Zephyrus into Cabal Shadow Priest Subdue probably just locks out the game, right?
Only
Or
Shivala was
this
still
also
in the deck.
just locks out the game, I think.
So now he just does timeout, right?
Yes, absolutely. If he doesn't time out, I hate this play. If he does, I'm fine. Even if he, honestly, even if he doesn't time out, I think he probably still just wins. Actually, yeah. Like,
There's literally just not enough damage.
it just
in the
doesn't
deck.
make a difference. Yeah.
The problem here, basically, is even if DawN drew Divine Spirit, there we go, in a fire, he makes a 14-14, hits him in the face, doesn't kill him,
Subdue.
timeout,
Yeah.
subdue, timeout, Shivala.
It makes
lethal
no
game.
difference.
Yeah,
It
so
makes no difference.
It's almost just like a checkmate scenario because, and this is what we get into when you face Holy Wrath Paladin because they draw their deck, you're less in the mid to late game. You're less playing around cards and more playing into them because you just have to, and you know what they can do. Frosty may as well play with an open hand at this point because he's effectively drawn his deck.
Yeah. On ladder, sometimes this works for DawN. Versus Frosty, this never works.
Right.
He will win this game.
Yeah, on ladder, people use, for example, timeout in very odd ways.
They mess it up. Yeah.
It's blown my mind ever since Holy Wrath. Well, timeout was a card, I guess, it's. I don't know. I've seen like timeouts not be used facing down like 12 damage.
I
and then
will say this for the last
then
turn of the game.
Used on like 3 health
Yeah.
with no other cards in hand or something. You're like, friend, come on. You put yourself here. Yeah, timeout.
He is at 26 though, so perfectly safe, I think he'll find.
Oh, even the last card
There we
gets the job done. Frosty going to take another win with this Holy Wrath Paladin. And again, maybe this is just better versus Priest. It just isn't half bad, is it?
Fine, yep. I think when you're piloting it well,
Yes.
which is not an easy feat at all,
Agreed.
you're in a fantastic position against the Priest, or at least a reasonable one, because I think if Priest is able to get up to a either a very strong minion start where they just go nice and wide, hit a Psycho Pump, or are drawing a lot of cards, that's when things can go wrong. But as soon as just one sweeping board clear hits the board, it really feels like Priest is massively on the back foot.
Yeah, I feel like when there's so many cards in the deck and you draw so fast, it's likely you consistently have an answer.
Yep.
Whether that's a timeout to wait, one equality to just lower health values, stuff like that, heal to draw more cards.
Doesn't make
Like,
a
you always have
difference.
something to do, and I think the one subdue, like, actually is the cherry on top for the deck. It sounds really weird that just one extra card in the deck changes things.
Yeah.
But in this matchup, I think it's absolutely huge. FroStee taking the lead 1-0 with his Holy Wrath Paladin against DawN, of course. And we're going to see if he can 2-0 or if DawN's going to fight back after the break.
We've created a new home for all things Hearthstone Esports for both desktop and mobile users. From the homepage, you can find the latest articles, scores, and VODs. And from the navigation bar, you can find so much more. Here's how it works. Under the Grandmasters tab, you can view competitor profiles. Here you can see a player's top classes, recent decks, and watch their most recent series. You can also access the standings from this tab to help you understand where each player is in terms of playoff contention or relegation. On the schedule page, you can check the dates and times for every part of the Hearthstone Masters program. This includes the full calendar of Masters qualifiers, Masters Tour event pages, and the weekly schedule for Hearthstone Grandmasters. Looking to try your hand at the decks the pros are using? Simply click the eye on a Grandmasters match to see submitted deck lists. From here, hit the purple Copy Deck Code button and open Hearthstone to your collection. Then, create a new deck and simply answer the Create from Clipboard prompt in the affirmative. Finally, the News tab will show you Hearthstone Esports news exclusively. Dive into interviews with your favorite players and check back every so often to see what you've missed. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the tavern.
We are back with FroStee versus DawN in the penultimate game of the day, or match of the day, should I say. And FroStee currently leading with that Holy Wrath Paladin, but now I believe we're coming down to a Priest Mirror, Derek.
Another one. Yeah, they've
Bites
been
the dust.
a little bit.
Sorry,
Yes. Well, one of these players will be biting the dust, actually, pretty hard. Because that tends to be what happens. One priest doesn't just win, it destroys the other person.
It basically hits you so hard that you cannot queue priest again for at least a week.
Exactly.
Which is why Grandmasters is 1 week apart.
Well, at least a couple of days until you play your next match.
Well, whatever. Stop picking holes in my funny joke. But anyway.
It doesn't add up.
But anyway, the Priest Spirit is going to be explosive, and it really, like, I was going to ask you before when we were casting one, but we're doing this one instead. Is the mulligan to the extent where you actually mulligan for an Inner Fire above all else? Or are the minions you actually keep even if you don't have an Inner Fire?
Yes, I would keep Tolvir and I would keep Cleric 100% of the time. Like if you look at just the raw win rate of cards, like Cleric, Tolvir I think are 1 and 2, and then I think like Silence is number 3, and Inner
In the
Fire
mirror
is
or in
number
general?
4. In the mirror,
In the
sorry.
mirror,
Yeah,
okay.
specifically in the mirror, yes. Silence and Inner Fire are usually quite low. In the mirror, they are extraordinarily high, and so it's like with all mulligans, right? There are cards I would keep, there are cards I would not keep. Some cards you only keep if you have other cards. Basically, I'm looking for Tolvir, Cleric, Silence, Inner Fire, maybe Powered Shield as well.
Okay.
Probably I'd keep Shield as well.
And is there
Obviously, there are other things you can look for, like
Yeah.
if you have the Tolvir, you can go for Circle,
Right.
things like that.
I got you, friend.
Sidekick going to kick it off for DawN, though.
Yeah.
That wasn't on your list.
It was not. And there are a lot of cards that you rarely look for that are usually good in other matchups. That I don't like Amit, I don't like Psycho Pomp. I don't even like Blade Master. I don't like Blade Master. I usually, like, if I have Cleric, I'd consider keeping the Beaming Sidekick. Because really, all I'm trying to do in the matchup is start value trading as soon as I humanly can. And I want cards that help me do that. Like on the coin, if you have a 1-drop, Extra Arms is also perfectly fine.
Right.
This is a very strong play.
And now this is honestly what you've got to look for. This is the most, maybe, one of the most savage matchups in terms of board control. This reminds me of old Zoo days, in which like the whole match or the whole game was just players just aggressively trading into each other to just say, I'm sticking this board, no, I'm sticking this board. And then that was literally the whole game until one person couldn't refill, and then the game ended.
It honestly reminds me of, did you ever play Bushido Blade? Where like, it was kind of like a fighting game, but like the whole point was, it was over like in 2 seconds. Like if you stabbed the other person,
Oh, really?
you won because
I've played,
That's
I've
what
played
would
modes
happen.
of that in other fighting games.
Right, yeah. Because like, it feels like how I would imagine sword fights actually would have been in real life, where if you get stabbed, obviously you die.
I played games where it's like one-touch wins.
Yeah,
So,
exactly,
you know,
yeah.
blocks, you're safe from block, but
Right,
if you
yeah.
actually get hit, you've lost. Like,
Exactly.
that's around.
That's what this is. As soon as one player gets it, pulls into the lead, it's difficult to come back. Very, very difficult.
I must consider.
Remember to tell you about a game later, you'll like it. Injured Blade Master going to face off against his cousin, also Injured Blade Master.
The family reunions get incredibly confusing and very violent.
Only towards themselves, though.
Exactly.
Is someone injured?
Ooh. Wow.
Wow, what do you... Is this the assumption that either trade gives enough benefits for FroStee? He either keeps a Cleric or he keeps a Blade Master?
Well, I think it's partly that. It's also, it denies heal value trade. Oh, sorry. It means if heal value trade
Against
wants to
draw.
come in, he gets a draw. And
Unless it's done
therefore
like
it
this,
means
of
he
course.
probably
Yep.
gets to keep a Blade Master on the board. And honestly, fine. I think I actually like this play from FroStee. I think this was
Weird,
a play I
but
would not
good.
have made because it was very weird. But honestly, might have been the winning play because now he has a minion on the board. And when you have a minion in play, stuff can happen.
And now, another question is how deep is FroStee going to go down this rabbit hole?
So he knows that he's facing down 6 attack minimum on the following turn because there is more arms in hand. And so I like doing anything he can to get his minion above 6 health. This does that. I think it's correct.
Would you like the Inner Fire?
I think so, right? It means it kills the minion.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. For some reason, I thought the arms put him up to
Yeah, yeah.
5. DawN is only playing 1 silence as well,
Okay.
so he's not going to face down the the double silence dilemma of saying, well, this is actually quite likely.
It is true, of course, that he could have just gone for extra arms on that last turn. But I guess on turn 6, he's probably just looking at if the minion sticks, double extra arms.
Yeah, I thought he was going to go extra arms, Divine Spirit. I think would have been okay, and he holds an Inner Fire. But honestly, I think he's in trouble if there's silence anyway. you know, regardless of what he did.
I think he was kind of in trouble if there was silence. He still had a 4-7. Now that there's Never Set Ritualist in a fire, he's in, as I believe Nathan that Savage recently would say, trouble.
Okay. I was going to say the poop. This is a family-friendly broadcast.
Yeah, he's up a river constructed completely out of poop with nothing with which to paddle.
Derek obviously appealing to the higher classes that are watching it.
Yeah, for any really fancy babies out there. With your milk in a wine glass thinking, yes, goo goo goo.
And a bow tie. For no reason, just a bow tie.
Puking on it.
Now though, it's so, like, this has been one of the more even priest mirrors, because although FroStee's getting, I feel, the worst end of the stick,
Yes, that's one way of putting it.
it's not the worst I've ever seen, honestly.
I think he's done
Yeah,
honestly, he's done a great job of trying to stay in this game. That cleric play on 4, I honestly don't think I could have made that play.
Right.
But I think it's the play that kept FroStee in the game 100%.
Look at this, the way this has turned out now. It's
Yeah.
the heal on the Blade Master comes down, he gets the trade.
Yeah, if he can find Bon Samdi, then we're talking.
Ooh, I wanted that to be a caster moment. It's like, Bon Samdi, just appears in hand.
I choose you. Yeah, he
just has
he
to play,
can't take
right?
the battle.
He just has to play.
Like, if he wasn't such a high attack minion, we could be looking at extra arms, value trade, heal it back up. But yeah, this is definitely the best he's looking at. Ooh. Ooh.
So now extra arms, cleric heal trade?
That's what I'm looking at.
And do you actually just chuck the Psycho Pump away as the extra damage? And keep the reborn
Player-
minion on the board?
Play around Pyromancer?
I don't know, I'm asking you, I don't know. I
Yeah,
just feel like, is the 3-1 that better than having a reborn minion? I don't know.
I think so. I think like
Okay.
the way he's losing isn't Pyromancer. It's
You sure about that?
It's something big being on the board
Okay.
like Bon Samdi, and to counteract that, you want to have as much attack on the right as possible. So I
Okay.
think on average, the Psycho Bomb's definitely worth holding on to, even though the play was punished in this instance. On average, I think it was the correct play. And it's not even that bad. Like, this is amazing. This is just absolutely amazing.
So second cleric here.
Yep.
Well,
Or Light Warden, whatever. Just start winning the game, I guess.
and this Pyro only has 4 health, right?
Yes.
So even this circle means that he's not healing the Pyro up that much, and the Nephroset still trades into it anyway.
It still dies.
And I'm pretty sure that was a concede if you look at the top hand there, and FroStee takes the loss in the Priest Mirror. It's all going to be even once again. I feel like we've had maybe not every match, but it feels like an evening of 1-1s so far as these matchups are going to game number 3. And honestly, I feel like an uncanny amount of time it is coming down to a player goes 1-0, then they play a Priest Mirror in the middle,
Yeah.
just to go for break, and then whoever gets it evens it up and so on. Like I don't know. I feel like it keeps coming down to just one player gets to play Priest twice, and that might be the breaking point now. Because FroStee, you could argue, is still favoured as he still has his Priest left.
That's right, and DawN going with the very traditional lineup, at least in terms of Asia Pacific in Season 2 so far, has had his Warrior Band, of course, one with the Priest, and is now left only with Shaman and Druid. And I
Right.
feel like this exact situation, which is very mappable to figure out that you end up here, is why a lot of players have been deviating from the 4 standard decks. In their lineup, we're seeing players go for Zoo because they think it's got a bit of a better chance against Priest. We're seeing players go for Highlander Hunter, a bit of a better shot against Priest. Even Rogue that Tyler's going for there, again, to try and just break this equilibrium
Yep.
where it ends up with whoever has their Priest left is in the lead.
And even across the board there, we've got in different regions, we've got Jambray Shaman, which is Token Shaman. Well, I say Token Shaman. What would you even call that list?
Aggro
without
Shaman
calling
and Token Shaman, yeah.
Well, also because Staz is bringing Murloc Aggro Shaman as well. So, not even even just that, he's bringing a lot of different decks, hitting it across the board, and I like it. Whether it's right or wrong, and maybe this is just too much of me, but I prefer trying to break something as opposed to saying, let's all bring the same decks and play better. And maybe that's because I'd lose in that instance. I edge away from something like that a little bit more. But I feel like overall we've seen players rewarded for some play that like kind of breaks this expected outcome, and which is why I harp on about just not bringing Warrior. I think is a completely fine strategy.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people build the lineup with Warrior and Priest in mind, and whether they ban it or have to play against it, it's very much lodged in there. If you don't bring it, it's kind of like maybe puts them on the wrong foot. But yeah, it is going to be a very straightforward one for DawN, and I don't know if it's going to be good.
Yeah, we know the matchup as we can see here, actually, it's revealed. Shaman versus the Priest. I think this is definitely the expected result. I wasn't even sure, actually, what FroStee had left as his other deck. I think it was the Shaman as well. But FroStee's never playing anything other than Priest. He has two very good matchups. Snap Q the Priest. DawN, with that 100% information, pretty much, I think you can assume that as a guaranteed. Just has to choose whether he would rather have Druid versus Priest or Shaman versus Priest. And I absolutely agree. I'd rather have Shaman. It sucks, but I'd rather have Shaman.
Is someone injured?
I get the feeling you disagree.
I think I just disagree because of my own personal experience with both of those matchups. But that does by no means mean I am correct, because that is literally my own personal sample size of those games.
Yeah.
I've had bad experiences that stick with me till this day. So yeah, maybe I would have just queued Druid and be like, I trust in the heart of the cards. But yeah, this drawing the Plague of Murlocs is another bad experience I've had, and I'm excited to see what happens here. If I'm just unlucky or if it's just the world.
Yeah, that's right. This is supposedly the get out of jail free card, but the problem is that even if they get like the best case scenario for you with a bunch of 2-1s and 1-1s, it's not that bad.
Every
and when
time,
they get the best bloomin' case scenario like that one, the game just ends.
And this is the issue with Plague of Murlocs, is when you're forced into it on turn 3,
yes,
it's terrible. Because you want your own minions on the board as well, and you often don't have that.
Yeah.
So like Plague of Murlocs is definitely a turn 5 to 6 card, in my opinion, than a turn 3 card. Because look, like you give your opponent, say 2, say 3, maybe more Murlocs, and they kind of get charged because you create the minions on their turn, right? So all these can attack and do, what was that, 11? So 14 damage. Like, these are going to end the game without fancy priest stuff, and there's nothing that DawN can really do about it, although I do wonder if that 1-2 was even really needed to be played.
Yeah,
because there's MCT. Not that it's going to save him particularly, but you never know.
Against the Zap as well. Mainly, I bring it up just because it can be played on the same turn as the MCT. So we could see MCT Zap take out the Fish Flinger if he doesn't steal it. Oh! Is this the out for DawN?
I don't know if FroStee needed to play that 1-2.
I don't know if he did either.
It's very results oriented, but I don't know what the extra health does.
Play around like Lightning Storm coming off of the thing?
But does it really?
No, it doesn't.
Like,
it doesn't.
you know, you already have a 4 health minion that definitely never dies.
It doesn't even do that. I think, was it Mogu? No, because it was a 4-4 anyway. Look at Frosty's head. He's just hanging his head in his hands.
As well, he put an extra minion on the board to make the Mogu cheaper.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like, that one hurt. I don't think that 1-2 was needed.
I think that was the way he lost.
It's very easy for me to say right now, of course, but
DawN's not playing Hungry Crab, is he?
No.
Look at
DawN.
DawN
DawN loves it.
Oh, DawN's having the time of his life, and he owes it all to you.
Okay. I was considering as well, I mean, fair enough to DawN, he went for it. I was considering actually whether Feral Spirit into setting up for the Elemental was ever good enough. But I think that was more of a survival play as opposed to a win play.
That's the thing. You're playing with fire there, I think.
Or sand. Both quite annoying. No one likes sand being thrown around.
Yeah, it's it's coarse and irritating.
It gets everywhere.
It's the right way.
So now just trade Elemental. Let's not be fancy. Or
Is that better than just VT the Pyro Totem?
it's got 5 health. And you never die into a pyro, right? Because it hurts itself.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
good
that
point.
I think if this was a normal matchup, like an average deck, I'd be like, yeah, you just trade the pyro, it's fine. Because it's priest.
Yeah.
I think you just kill the 3/5. Don't make fancy plays, right?
Yeah.
Don't do what FroStee kind of did earlier in the game.
And getting into FroStee's head here, even if, you know, even though I think we disagree with this play, even if it was the correct play, given that it was punished in this instance, he is thinking, I messed up. I made the wrong play. People are going to be laughing at me. Like, just because in the instance where it goes horribly wrong,
It looks worse.
it looks
Yeah,
terrible.
it looks
exactly.
worse.
And you're thinking, what are my practice partners thinking? What Twitch chat thinking? Do I look like an idiot? I don't want to go out this way.
And that's why I'm saying it's very easy for us sat here behind this desk, after seeing the outcome, going, oh, he didn't have to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The only thing
was a
our
tough
job
call.
is to raise the fact that did that help him win this game of Hearthstone? And if it didn't, then he technically did not need to do it. And did it give his opponent a chance at an out? Yes, it did.
But he has got the clear, which is something. It means he's not out of the game. DawN obviously has value miles in his advantage. FroStee has to find, what? Psychopomp? Cleric?
Bonsam.
Bonsam, yeah. Amit as well would be... Amit wouldn't even be that good here, honestly. It's just kind
Well,
of too
Amit
low
would be
attack.
good if your next draw was Divine Spirit and then in a fight. you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because DawN is on low health.
Yeah.
So DawN can just kind of die if FroStee sticks the board. I like this play from DawN though. Just play stuff. Inner Fire, probably worst card right now to draw for FroStee.
To be fair to FroStee, he has got some grotty draws in the last few turns. Like, what is that, 4 spells in a row, I think, now? You can't even have many left in his deck at this point.
All FroStee needs to focus on is this draw doesn't matter. Next draw can be one Sandy. That, you know, honestly, that's what he's got to put himself in the mindset. Who cares about this draw? This draw, no matter what card it was never really winning him the game. The next draw might, and he's not dead yet. But now, Lackey into Barista, or even just bounce. Lackey bounce, play Lackey.
I wonder.
Like,
Sure.
you get a 3/3. You know, you get 2 big minions on the board. You protect the MCT to get even more minions on the board. It helps proc
Sets up
or
Barista.
sets up into Mogu or Barista, depending on what you're after, right? And it gets the quest done. Yeah, this is a back-breaking turn.
Or we can even go quest on this turn, right? Yeah, quest, bog, slosher, bouncy, bounce. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because Lackey bounce and then you could.
I wasn't even
sorry,
factoring in.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, exactly. It's just.
The dream.
And now this has to be Bonsam. I mean, it's close.
Okay.
It's close to a Bonsam. I actually forgot about the Murlocs already. And the problem is the board's just already dead.
Yeah.
And now this Hero Power
Spiral.
Barista.
Spiraled out of control. It's nothing.
FroStee knows it as well.
Double pump Azarano, extra Star Whip, high mount, nice and
The
low
mind
for
control
nice
tech of
highlight.
DawN breaking this game's back. And bear in mind, FroStee is not in relegation fear.
No, not at all.
He's fine, but I know FroStee wanted to make playoffs, and he still can, I think. I think
so.
he still can. We'll find
Yes.
out way more information, obviously, tomorrow. But you don't want a loss that you may have, you know, after this match is done dusted, you may sit back and think, did I need that? Could I have avoided that by just playing slightly differently on one play? Gotta feel rough as FroStee takes a loss. He's definitely unhappy with that game, and maybe even unhappy with himself. We'll have to find out if we talk to him the rest of the weekend. But DawN takes a win, and I believe that is 8 and 5.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're
So
correct.
DawN looking good now, just getting, you know, boosting that score back up, moving a little bit further up in the standings there. And again, this is the last week of the league portion of Grandmasters. Next week is going to be playoffs, and if your last week is going to be finished on a 2-0, that's how I want to finish it.
Absolutely. DawN now has got his eyes very firmly set on first seed, as he's always been floating near the top. I don't think there's been any point where he has been absolutely number one, because that's always been Glory or Tom right up there at the top. But he can now have his eyes set once again on that first seed, because if he can get that, it gives him a bye going into the playoffs.
Right.
He gets one free win effectively against the player in 4th place, which is just absolutely huge in getting his highest chance possible to get through to BlizzCon, which that's the dream. It's what all these players want.
It really is, yeah. And it's going to be huge for whichever player makes it. He'll be joining Surrender as representatives from the Asia-Pacific region. 2 players from each region, Americas, Europe, Asia-Pacific, and of course China, are going to be going forward at BlizzCon for the global finals. It's going to be pretty hype just to see, as always, not only just to see Hearthstone, but to see bragging rights based on regions.
Oh, yeah.
As is always the case. And we're now split half Europe, half APAC. The region we cast versus the region we live in.
I'm APAC all the way.
Oh, okay. Well,
Europe
same then.
sucks.
No, same. I'm okay with this. I'll join you. For better or worse, I guess. But we have our last match of the day. It is going to be Alutimu versus Tom60229. Tom obviously has been in contention and won on the world stage before as a previous world champion. And Alutimu had an extremely impressive Season 1 and probably my all-star player from Season 1, at least, based on what I saw.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement there. And he also had, honestly, a pretty good year last year with the HCT tour stop system that we had last year. He wasn't a big name that was being sung about a lot, but honestly, with his very strong ladder performances, which is his main credit, I think, where he was a very strong ladder grinder, and also reasonable success at the tour stops as well, especially locally in Japan. I think he's a real contender coming into Season 2 as well, because with being our runner-up, I suppose, for Season 1 of Hearthstone Grandmasters, he wants another shot at the title.
Right, again, so close but so far away. But yeah, Alutimu was formerly known as a Machamp, if you may recall that name from previous years. But he was always a player that, back when we had playoffs and the casters were doing their predictions, I would always look at Machamp's lineup, see what he's had, because was always a consideration, even from the early days of when Asia Pacific was quite new to not only most of the casters, but to also everyone in the Western scene, at least. So Machamp / Alutimu always been a name on the list, and he's going to be going up against Tom, who pretty much needs no introduction as a previous world champion. And Tom, He's a thing in itself, isn't he? Because I feel like he just does his own thing no matter what, and he's good enough that works more than it doesn't. But my question is, he's doing more of the same that we've seen pretty much all season from Tom. He's been fairly successful, but is that actually going to be enough, say, maybe not even just this weekend, but is that going to be enough for this weekend and playoffs? And then maybe global finals? I don't know.
I don't know either. I think with the average player, I would say definitely not. You have to do something to set yourself apart from the rest of the players. For Tom, maybe it's just being Tom that sets him apart from the rest of the players.
It's crazy, but maybe next week we'll see if anything changes if he makes playoffs. But I believe we're just trying to get hold of one of the players. We'll do the big reveal as to who we're going to shame, as to who we're waiting on after the break. Though we'll be right back, guys.